You thought he was done? You thought the takes were too hot to handle? You better think again. He's back with even more scorching opinions, more controversial predictions, and the kind of truth bombs that only Zain Bando can deliver. If you missed the first round, prepare yourself. This is the follow-up you've been waiting for. It's time for Zain Zinger Part 2, another certified hit from the Empty the Bench Network. Here's your host, Zain Bando.
Well, sorry about that. I just did a tickle in my throat. Welcome back, everyone, to Zain Zinger Part 2. That was an unceremonious beginning to today's stream. Shout out to everyone who's in here, 68 people so far on this Sunday morning. Hope you are doing fantastic. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. This is the extension show, if you will, of Banda's Breakdowns. We just had episode 103 this past week. Shout out to all of you guys who tuned in for that as well. Greatly appreciated today, though. It's the extension portion of it. It's Zain Zinger Part 2. It's actually going to become a second show moving forward here as we get into the fall calendar with college football and the NFL season. So stay tuned for more details on that in just a minute. Wanted to go through a few quick reminders, though, before we get started. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench podcast. And to do so, you can follow the show on social media at Banda's Breakdown, and you can subscribe to the channel at youtube.com/ETB Network. And speaking of our YouTube channel, we have a whole lot of fun stuff planned at the moment. So without further ado, let me get into some pretty critical announcements here as we get moving right along with all of this. So the Empty the Bench podcast network is pleased to announce that the network has surpassed 3,000 watch hours on YouTube, and we cannot thank you, the viewers, for your outstanding support in making this milestone possible. Thanks to viewers like you, in the coming days and next week, we will be in the coming days and in the coming weeks, we will be rolling out more details regarding our super chat, super sticker, super thanks, channel membership tiers, merch store, and so much more. We thank you again for your support of ETB network programming as well. And speaking of ETB network programming, it is not too far away as well. The NFL season isn't too far away, so without further ado, let's run through that as well. Ditch the traditional broadcast desk and fire up the grill. It's time to tailgate. Ditch your dad's boring old school pregame show and get walked in with Gridiron Gurus on the Empty the Bench podcast network, showing Grant Winsauer, Ben Cruz, and Michael Rapolo every Sunday. So following me during the season at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific for the ultimate Sunday morning kickoff tailgate. Grant, Ben, and Michael give you everything you need in the final hour before kickoff, which includes last-minute fantasy sit and start advice, sharp betting lines, critical weather conditions, and real-time injury news that could make or break your Sunday slate. Don't set your lineups or lock in your bets on autopilot. Join the tailgate, get the edge, and win your Sunday. Catch Gridiron Gurus every Sunday, again, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, only on the Empty the Bench podcast network. And without further ado, and if you want to subscribe to the channel today, certainly do that. We'll keep it up here for just another minute while you guys get a chance to do that, but you can subscribe to the channel at any time. Again, youtube.com YouTube.com/ETBNETWRK. And finally, a few more administrative pieces before we continue on and get started with today's stream regarding what we're going to be discussing today. Wanted to give you guys a few other reminders that you can check out the full playlist of Bandos Breakdowns and Zain Zinger Part 2 today, no matter where you are, whether you're on the ETB Network YouTube channel or whether you're on my YouTube channel, which is at ZanBando99. There's curated playlists for every single episode of both streams. So if you guys haven't already subscribed to the respective playlists, please make sure to do that as they are housed in one place. So again, the full playlist for Bandos Breakdowns in this very show is curated by me every single week, and it is updated as of a couple of days ago, including today's episode. So stay tuned, subscribe to that playlist, notify yourself of that playlist. That way you don't miss a single stream of either this show or Bandos Breakdowns. All right, that's enough of me rambling for now. Let's get started with today's stream if we can. And actually, one final reminder as well, for those of you who may be tuning into the stream late, you can actually, here it is. Nonetheless, though, you can listen to the full replay or watch the full replay as well. And yeah, that's what I was gonna do. So again, Zain Zinger Part 2. If you're tuning in late, catch Sunday's episode and/or replay on X or YouTube. All right, let's get started now. UFC Sacramento was last night from the Golden One Center, the first UFC event in Sacramento since July of 2019. It was a phenomenal card in terms of finishes. We had 10 finishes across 13 fights on the card. It was a pretty good main event as well. Gregor Rodriguez out of Brazil gets the job done over Anthony Hernandez, who was fighting in his home state of California in a crazy, crazy fight. Unanimous decision win. There are 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards liked a 49-46 scorecard there. I'm pretty sure the scores were 49-46 and 48-47 as well. But a huge, huge win for RoboCop. It was a number 6 versus number 11 offering in the middleweight division. Of course, Hernandez entering the fight had won 8 out of his last 9 fights, while Rodriguez had won, I think it was 7 in a row or something of that nature as well. Very, very good fight. Rodriguez obviously used his pressure, stuffed 25 takedowns. The difference in the fight, though, was the fact that RoboCop was able to use his leg kicks to neutralize Hernandez's striking ability, dropped him on several occasions with that calf kick, and that seemed to be the difference in the fight overall. Without a doubt, one of the biggest wins of Rodriguez's career, no doubt about it, is he remains firmly in a crowded title picture as we just surpassed 100 viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Those of you who are just coming in, thank you so much. We are recapping UFC Sacramento, which was last night's UFC event from the Golden One Center, as I just alluded to. First UFC event in Sacramento since 2019, and man, did it deliver. But anyway, continuing on with the main event here, Rodriguez was just phenomenal. He was phenomenal in every facet, looked really good. His striking was great. Hernandez did come back. He had some rallies, but, a lot of people had it a 4-1 fight. Some had it a 3-2, but clearly Rodriguez was the better man on Saturday night. And a huge, huge win, again, for RoboCop, as I alluded to there. Remains a contender in a crowded middleweight division. As for how I did last night, we went 8-5 on this card. We did lose the main event. We did have Hernandez in this fight, so we are 500 for UFC main events on the year thus far at 14-14. So we're going to try to turn the page to Shanghai next Saturday morning, which we will. Well, actually, let me think about this. Yeah, we will recap that fight next week, the Nurmagomedov Song Yudong fight. But nonetheless, though, pretty exciting event from Sacramento. To go over the quick results here, as I've been meaning to do, let's do that really quick if we can. Obviously, last night it was a 5 Eastern start for the prelims, some pretty good prelims as well. Let's go over some of the standout performances if we can. Chanel Dyer looked really good striking-wise against Elise Reed. Jackson McVeigh looked awesome. And then Stan Durnsville beating Gage Young. That was a crazy, crazy fight. Barboza versus Hughes was a good fight as well. Padilla submitting Hackparas. That was a bit of a surprise. Shamil Ghazi up with a nice bounce back win. Jamal Emmers looking phenomenal against Larry Douglas. And then former New York Jets middle linebacker Anthony Wynn wins his UFC debut against Terrence Chapman in a dominant win there. Arm triangle choke win for Wynn. Wants to remain active, wants to fight again as quickly as possible. I would guess you will see him before the end of the year. If I were to guess, it'll be at Madison Square Garden or it'll be in Las Vegas. I think he's one of those um, special fighters, kind of like a Gable Stevenson, where they will fast track Wynn as quickly as they can because this guy is he's a beast. He's a physical presence. Obviously, as I just said, former football player, but he is a phenomenal athlete. Just the way he moves, the way he doesn't is unfazed by really anything thrown his way whatsoever. And Chapman didn't have much for him at all, and he made it look super easy. And then in the women's flyweight division, Carly Judice, what a absolute stud, winning by liver kick knockout over Jeslia Chavez, who to me really didn't have much for Judice. Judice is a stud. She now has 5 first-round finishes in a row. I think that's now 4 wins in a row for Judice. She is certainly a problem at flyweight. She probably needs 2 to 3 more wins to crack that, top 15. She's saying that she's ready for the top 15, but I think she needs one more fight against a quality name to really solidify that. But to win in Sacramento and to have the crowd embrace her is really cool. And I think that knockout, the way she won this fight by knockout, I think her social following is going to get bigger because I think now people know who she is. And that clip, has already gone viral a little bit. And then Markel Madero's crazy comeback win against Mason Jones. Huge upset. Mason Jones had a crazy streak going in. I think he'd won 7 in a row or something like that. That was even dating back to his previous UFC stint as well, because this is now his second one in the promotion. And Madero's, was eating a lot of shots. Jones was cracking him and stuff. But oh my goodness, that fight was awesome. You want to talk about a possible, knockdown, drag out, 2-round fight? This was one of those where it was. It's a 2-round fight you won't forget. That's a sleeper fight that you throw on a highlight reel of the greatest forgotten fights in UFC history, or at least one of them. I would certainly consider that for the list as well. And then looking over the co-main event, Ranier Ritter moves up to light heavyweight, taking on former middleweight contender turned light heavyweight Roman Dolidze. Made it look really easy. Ranier Ritter knocks out Dolidze in just thunderous fashion. That was a crazy fight as well. And then Vitor Petrino defeating Sergey Spivak in the co-main event. His volume was just a whole lot better than Spivak. He was quicker on the feet as well. That was an awesome fight. I knew Petrino would win that one. Not a lot of people in my MMA odds breaker predictions group took Petrino. I think I was one of the few who did, or maybe the only one who did. I can't remember, but I know it was very few. But Petrino gets it done. Huge win over a guy in Spivak who's always a tough customer, and he'll be back for sure. The question is going to be, though, is where is the downgrade going to come at heavyweight? Because Dana White made a very good point last night to the media, and I would agree with him that heavyweight has been a little bit more exciting as of late, with Josh Hokett, with Gable Stevenson. There's other heavyweights on the come up as well. You still have Derek Lewis too, but it's a better division than what it was. It still is a little bit in a holding pattern because of this whole Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane, and Alex Pereira situation. So we still don't know what is really going to happen with the heavyweight title. But what we do know is that heavyweight is a lot better quality-wise than maybe it once was a couple of years ago, at least, in terms of the quality of the fights. Maybe the fighters aren't as strong, but overall, the quality of fights were great. And then obviously we're going to read the main event, as I was just alluding to there. Of course, Rodriguez beating Hernandez, the guy that, a lot of people thought was on the verge of a title shot against Hamzat before losing to Strickland. Has now lost 2 in a row. So he's going to have to go back to the drawing board, figure out what's next Who knows? Maybe he doesn't fight till early next year. He took a lot of damage in that fight, so who knows? And obviously, he admitted after the fight that he was a tough SOB. So you know that if that's the case, then obviously Hernandez took a bit of a beating, and that's exactly what happened. So we'll see what's next for Hernandez, but Rodriguez is going to stay active for sure. He wants Dricus Duplessis next. I think if Duplessis is healthy for MSG in November, sign me up for that. That's a crazy fight. That's a great co-main event or featured fight on a main card. That's a fight that a lot of people would be interested in for sure. And similarly to the Jared Cannonier fight, let's see if Rodriguez can beat one of these other big names, because when he got another chance to do so against Cannonier, a guy that's been around a long time, he wasn't able to do so. So we'll see how that transpires. But overall, a very, very good card. UFC Sacramento in the books. Golden One Center, great crowd. A lot of people were into it, although the one fight they booed, I agree with Dana, shouldn't have been booed. That was a little weird. You could tell that there were some casuals when these guys would go to the ground and they would start booing. So who knows? Every market's different. Some people aren't going to fully understand it, and it's okay. But regardless, great show. They move on to Shanghai next week. We'll cover Shanghai more on the next episode of Banda's Breakdown. So let's recap the Shanghai card, which is a very early start. I think it's a 5 a.m. Eastern Central start, 6 a.m. Eastern for the main card, I'm pretty sure. And then the prelims are before that. So an early morning in the United States for those looking to watch that card. All right, let's move on now to the other major fight of the night from Las Vegas. It was right afterward. Rolly Romero, Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez gets it done, becomes a champion of 3 divisions at various points in his career. A lot of point fighting in this fight. Not the most jeez. Not the most excuse me. Not the most I guess you could say high octane fight that a lot of people were expecting, but Lopez did get the job done across 12 rounds, taking care of business, especially in rounds 10, 11, and 12 were the difference to me. Romero just wasn't getting his punches off as well, in my opinion. He had Lopez hurt a couple times, but he couldn't finish him. And yeah, I don't know, man. I think Lopez has a lot of options next. It's clear he wants to stay active. Romero didn't really give a post-fight interview, so we don't really know what's next for him, but we do know that Lopez wants to stay busy. He wants to stay diligent. It was a decent performance from him. It wasn't the greatest performance ever, but it was a performance that he went back on and say, yeah, I won and I looked decent doing so. So we'll see where he goes from here. Let's take a look at the results of that card as well, as I did pick it. So let's take a look here. Romero versus Lopez from T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. I actually went undefeated on this card. How about that? I got all 8 fights correct. How about that? I was perfect, and I got 4 of them perfectly right. Romero with the knockout in the 5th round. Blancas by decision. Brown by decision. Hernandez by decision. That's pretty freaking impressive. I got them all right. 8 out of 8. Let's see how that did on Tapology's leaderboard. I'm curious. I was number 78 overall. A lot of people got a perfect score last night, so shout out to all of us in the Tapology community that got all of these right. I think that's amazing. Nonetheless, though, pretty solid card overall. Again, it was only an 8-fight card. Let's go over the results. Teofimo Lopez, WBA World Welterweight Champion now, wins the belt there. Yoanel Hernandez was really good in his majority decision win against Francisco Varane. Gary Antonio Russell looked great as well by decision to win the interim, or I think it might have been a defense. No, he won the interim WBA World Super Bantamweight title. Carlos Uribe had a split decision win, although a lot of people thought Israel Mercado won this fight. Marco Romero won by knockout in the 1st round. Aldo Blancas, as I said, won a decision. Ben Johnson won over Jose Rodriguez. Joe Brown opened the night against Alton Wiggins, winning a unanimous decision as well. So overall, a solid card, some pretty good prospects, but the main event of the evening, biggest story there as well. Obviously, of course, Teofimo Lopez getting the job done in not inside 12 rounds, but across 12 rounds in Las Vegas, beating the hometown guy in Rolly Romero by decision at T-Mobile Arena. Looked like a sold-out crowd. The stream on DAZN was awesome. I had no issues at all. I think the DAZN Ultimate Package, as much as people like to complain about the price of it, I think it's worth every penny. You get every major boxing event that's on DAZN included with your subscription. You don't need to pay extra to watch fights anymore. You just have the fight as part of your subscription. That's where everything's going now. Just like Paramount Plus with the UFC, everything is on Paramount already included. So there's so much to be excited about if you're a combat sports fan in the streaming landscape now, that it's more accessible than ever. So shout out to everybody that makes that a possibility. It's really awesome. So we're going to keep it moving now. We're going to move over and talk about some Illinois men's basketball. The non-conference schedule was revealed ahead of the 2026-27 season. I would be glad to go over with you guys who they're playing officially. Most of the matchups we already knew. Some of them I reacted to in real time on Bandit's breakdowns and or this stream as they broke. But the official schedule is now out, so I'm excited to bring it to you guys as well. It should be a phenomenal season for Illinois. They're coming off of a Final Four berth, obviously losing to UConn, but returning a ton of talented pieces, including Merkovic and the Ivasiches as well. They do have some newcomers that should be really awesome too. A lot of guys that a lot of people are really excited about, some interesting shooters as well. So much to look forward to from an Illinois standpoint. But let's take a look at this overall, this non-con schedule, which is going to begin in October. And there's going to be 2 instances where you will be able to watch Illinois in person live, exhibition-wise, on a Friday, and then turn around and watch football on Saturday at Memorial Stadium in Champaign. I'll tell you about those instances. And of course, I will tell you about who Illinois plays overall in non-conference play. I'm excited to get to Champaign a bunch of times this year. I'll for sure be at the exhibitions. There's no question about that, because those are great. You can stay overnight one night and then watch football the next day. It's a brilliant, It's a brilliant strategy, if you will, by Illinois to schedule those games. They did it a year ago with Colgate. There was another instance, I think, where they did it. So let's take a look here from Illinois men's basketball communications. Let's take a look at this release here. And actually, let's go over the printable schedule, because we don't even need to read the release. The release is all verbatim information. But here is the non-conference schedule in order. So beginning Saturday, October 17th, Illinois will travel to Cincinnati for their first exhibition game before coming home for 4 games, with 2 of them being exhibitions and the other 2 being the season opener and, of course, a rematch with Penn. So let's go over those. On Friday, October 23rd, they will welcome Baylor. Baylor's been a powerhouse in the last several years. On Friday, October 23rd, there is my bad, I'm being dumb. That precedes the Illinois-Oregon game, which is the very next day. Illinois-Oregon on that Saturday. So if you want to watch basketball the night before, you get Baylor coming to Champaign. It should be a phenomenal game as well. And then on that Wednesday, Illinois plays UIC. It's the first time in several years that that's happening. UIC comes to Champaign on that Wednesday, October 28th. And then the season begins with Fairleigh Dickinson on Monday, November 2nd, followed by a Thursday matchup with Penn. Then the season gets interesting very quickly, as the following Tuesday, they will play Texas Tech. That obviously will allow Illinois to reunite with the Gerard Gibbs Lawhorn. Obviously, he was on Illinois for a little bit, then went to UNLV and is now at Texas Tech. We'll see how that game plays out. Obviously, Gerard will be playing against some former teammates, but not a lot. Then Illinois will play Sam Houston on Friday, November 13th. There is no football game on that Saturday at home. Illinois will be at UCLA. So I bet that Sam Houston crowd will be very sparse, I would guess. That one I won't be at. Then they go to Duke. This is the big game. This is the one that a lot of people are circling on their calendar. Cameron Indoor. It's going to be a top 5 matchup more than likely. It's on Tuesday, November 17th. So mark that in your calendar. It's a big week for Illinois. They don't have a ton of turnaround time. They play Tuesday that week at Duke, and then they come home and they play Eastern Illinois the night before Illinois plays Iowa, which is the home season finale for Illinois on senior day, as Illinois will try to knock out the Iowa Hawkeyes. Maybe it's a CFP contender Iowa team. We shall see. It's still way too early to tell, but that could be a CFP eliminator game for the Hawkeyes and or Illinois based on where both of those teams are at during the season. And then the following Monday, they will play Winthrop. And then finally, on Black Friday, they will play Western Kentucky as well. And then they take a bit of a break. They'll play some Big Ten games, I'm sure, in this stretch. The official Big Ten schedule in terms of dates has not been revealed yet, but I would assume that they'll play at least one Big Ten game that week. Then they will return to the United Center for the Final Four rematch versus UConn. That's going to be awesome. I already have my tickets for that as well. In fact, there's a chance that I could also get credentialed for it too, so I could get the best of both worlds by still going to the press conference. But there is a friend that wants to go with me, so I will make sure to go with them, and then I'll go see Underwood after the game is over. But I'm very much looking forward to that. That'll be Friday, December 4th, and then a couple weeks later, they will play their annual bragging rights game against Missouri, looking to keep their winning streak against the Tigers intact over the last couple of seasons. They played really well in the last few meetings. I haven't been to a Missouri game since my senior year. Maybe this is the year I make a return. I don't know yet. Then they'll play Seattle. That'll be the last true non-conference game that's a non-power 4. And then their final non-con game will be a star-studded matchup, neutral site game in Nashville against the North Carolina Tar Heels. Obviously, as we know, they recently fired Hubert Davis following the NCAA tournament, so the new look Tar Heels, that will be an interesting team to watch as well. And then obviously, their home games are Iowa, Michigan State, Nebraska, Northwestern, Ohio State, Penn State, Purdue, UCLA, USC, and Wisconsin. On the road, they will get Indiana, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Northwestern, Oregon, Purdue, Rutgers, Washington, and Wisconsin. So we get Wisconsin twice. We get Northwestern twice. Let's see. Yeah, Wisconsin twice and Northwestern twice are the two big ones that stand out to me. And then finally, let's go over some other future dates. The Big Ten tournament will return to Indianapolis, Indiana for the second, or no, would it be the third time? Let's see, wait a minute now. I think it's the second time in 3 years and the third time in the last 6. Then the opening round of that's March 9th to the 14th. Then the NCAA opening round will be from Dayton, Ohio, which there's a good chance Illinois will not be in that, so that is not a worrisome thing. Then obviously the sites for the first and second rounds as to where they might play are to be determined. And then, of course, if they make it back to the Final Four this time, they will be in Detroit, Michigan for the conclusion of the 2026-27 college basketball season. So tons of chances to see Illinois, including a one-off game in Chicago against UConn, which should be phenomenal because if Illinois wins that, that'll be momentum for the remainder of the Big Ten season and something to very much look forward to. Can't wait to see this team in action. A lot of people have them as preseason number 2, some as number 3, some are saying they're number 1. So we'll see when the polls officially come out in the coming months where Illinois falls. But overall, though, very much looking forward to seeing how this team will fare after one of the best seasons in program history and the best season in the last 20 years for the Illinois Fighting Illini this past season as they fell to the UConn Huskies in the Final Four before UConn went on to lose the national title game to the Michigan Wolverines, who, of course, have had a wild offseason and no longer have Dusty May as their head coach. So, without further ado, let's move away from college basketball. Let's move over into the NFL now. We're going to go over the AFC East and the AFC South today. We only have a couple more divisions to go over. We haven't gone through all of them, but this will wrap up our AFC portion. We've already given our previous divisional picks so far. So just to give you a little bit of a run through, in the AFC North, we like the Pittsburgh Steelers to win the division. In the AFC West, we like the Denver Broncos to eke out a division title over the Kansas City Chiefs, who in my opinion will have a healthy Patrick Mahomes. So today we'll be going over the AFC South and AFC East and give our predictions for those. Let's get a little bit of help from our friends over at Bleacher Report as well. Okay. All right. So they have the Bills winning the AFC East at 12-5. I don't know if I fully agree with that. Maybe they do think the Patriots might have a bit of a hangover from going to the Super Bowl despite the loss. This is what they said about the Bills. Buffalo elevated Joe Brady from offensive coordinator to head coach. So expect the team's high-powered offense to continue its scoring flurries without wideout DJ Moore in the mix. The Bills will need some time to adjust to new defensive play caller Jim Leonard, who has, if you guys know ball, that is a Brett Bielema coaching tree name. Just had to throw that in there. That said, they have the veteran talent to field a stingy unit with the addition of edge rusher Bradley Chubb and defensive back CJ Gardner-Johnson joining the number one pass defense from last season. The Bills must figure out how to stop the run, but they're the best team in the AFC East. Looking over at what they said about the Super Bowl runner-up New England Patriots, the Patriots made a post-June 1st trade splash with the addition of wide receiver A.J. Brown. They signed wideout Romeo Doubs early in free agency, who obviously used to play for the Packers. Third-year quarterback Drake May will take another developmental leap after a close loss to Matthew Stafford in the 2025 MVP race. On the flip side, New England will play a much tougher schedule than it did last season. The Patriots will win their final regular season game to punch their ticket to the playoffs. So Bleacher Report believes it's a win and in scenario for New England in Week 18, which is extremely interesting. I'd have to look deeper at the Patriots schedule, which we'll actually do that right now. I'm curious as to what they think here. I might even go to a Patriots game this year because they're playing the Bears in Chicago, so I might be there at that game on October 22nd. I haven't decided yet, but there's a chance that you might see me at that game. They get the Bills early in the season in Buffalo. They host the Raiders. They host the Jets early as well. That's October 18th. They get a potential trap game against Miami. Miami always plays them tough down there. They'll get a pretty good Green Bay team as well at home. They have a international game against Detroit. They play the Chargers. They play the Bills. They play the Vikings. They have to go to Kansas City. That could be a big game that could decide whether New England is still in the playoff hunt or not, especially if Mahomes is still healthy. And then when you look at the end of the year, they finished the season with Denver and Miami, and those two games are critical. I mean, you lose two of the final four games down the stretch, and based on Bleacher Report's prediction, it's the difference between an 8-9, 7-10 team versus what they're saying is a 10-7 team. So we'll see where New England fares, but they do have them making the playoffs. This is a very difficult schedule, though. I will give them that. I'm going to give you a few guaranteed losses. I'm not going to go through the full schedule just because we want to get through. We have a bunch more topics to get through in the next, 15 to 20 minutes or so, let's call it. But let's go through some guaranteed, well, not guaranteed, but games that I think you comfortably circle and say, okay, New England probably loses that. So they'll lose to the Chiefs, in my opinion. On the road, that's a big one. They'll lose to, let's see. They'll lose to the Chiefs, in my opinion. On the road, they'll lose one of the Buffalo games, probably the game in Buffalo, I would say. Although I said the same thing a year ago, and the Patriots won that game at Orchard Park, so I don't know. That'll be a tough one. I don't know. The Chargers, they'll probably win even though it's on the road. They'll beat Minnesota, but I'm losing the plot here. I was supposed to give you guaranteed losses. So give me the Bills game, I would say. Seattle on the road, the opening game of the season. I'd say that. So that's another loss. So I've said about 3 potential losses so far. They can lose to the Bears. So that's 4. They can lose to Green Bay. That's 5. They can lose to Denver. I think I already said that, but I think 11-6 or 12-5. I think is a better projection. I think there's too many teams on here where you don't know, and there's too many question marks. I would say those teams are the Jets, Miami, Minnesota, and the Chargers. I would say those 4 are those outliers there where you don't quite know what you're going to get from all 4 of those teams. So if you win those 4 games, who knows? But I really like New England's schedule as opposed to what Bleacher Report is making it out to be. So I would agree. Give me the Bills to win the division. They are the best team in the AFC. AFC East at least. I don't know about the best team in the AFC overall. They could very well be. I still think a healthy Bo Nix in Denver, I think has something to say about it, considering they won the playoff game a year ago, or not a year ago, a couple months ago now, back in January in the postseason. But I think Bleacher Report, in my opinion, is underestimating how good this New England team could be record-wise. So give me a 12-13 win Patriots team, but I do think the Bills will do enough to win the division as well. The Jets at 5-12. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they're just not good. They mentioned some different things. Geno Smith is back with the Jets now. Prone to turnovers. Yeah, I agree. The schedule is difficult as well. They've got NFC North and AFC West opponents, which is no easy task. You might get 6 losses out of that. Lost to the Bears, lost to the Packers, lost to Detroit, lost to Denver, lost to Kansas City, lost to the Chargers. So, you might get a lot of losses in there as well. And then Miami, 2-15. The Bleacher Report believes that they'll be in contention with the Cardinals for the number 1 overall pick. Jeff Halfley will have a lot of work to do, but who knows? Maybe Malik Willis is the guy. Maybe he's not. I have no idea, but no Tua and really no other weapons as well makes it a difficult sell for me to love Miami this season. Let's move on now to the AFC South as well. So just to give you my official prediction for the AFC East now that we have it. So far in the AFC, we like Pittsburgh to win the North, and we like the Bills to win the East. Let's go over the AFC South, and the Broncos to win the West. Let's go over the AFC South now. So Indy, Houston, Jacksonville, Tennessee. Let's go over what Bleacher Report thinks and see if I agree with them or not. Interesting stuff, though. That's for sure. Okay, AFC South. All right. Houston Texans, they've got them winning the division at 13-4. Texans are led by defensive-minded head coach D'Amico Ryans. Former linebacker, a lot of star power. They've got Derek Stingley Jr. and Pro Bowler Kalen Bullock is there as well. They still have Will Anderson, and they've got C.J. Stroud. Yeah, they're a very, very good team. And they actually have Houston being the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, and knowing Houston football history, that usually doesn't bode well for them in the postseason. If you know, you know. You got to go back to the Oilers days to find out some of those. But then they got the Jaguars at 9-8. Let's see. And then they've got tough games against the Bears, Steelers, and Texans. Huge spots there. And then they have them going 9-8. And they actually don't have them going to the postseason. And they have them faltering late, finishing with a winning record, but it won't be enough. Then the Titans will go 7-10, according to Bleacher Report. They obviously drafted Cardinal Tate, of course, who's going to be a stud wide receiver, but it's not going to be right away. They'll be in some games, but it'll be It'll be interesting though. And Cam Ward is back. Hopefully he doesn't resort to being Cam Ward again, but we'll see. And then the Colts finish in last place. Daniel Jones is obviously injury prone as well. Alec Pierce is still inactive, which is unfortunate. He's a great player. I don't know, man. And then their defense was just horrible. 21st or worse overall for 3 consecutive years. They have the Colts missing the playoffs. I agree with Houston winning the division as well. So that is my AFC slate. AFC's all done. So again, division winners: AFC North Pittsburgh, AFC West Denver, AFC South Houston, and AFC East Buffalo. So those are my divisional winners in the AFC. Let's move on now to the final couple of topics as well. And we'll get in a quick note on a series that will be returning for me as well, which I'm excited about. So there's a Seattle Times reporter. It's been breaking news everywhere this week, who decided to resign from the paper because the paper would not publish a column about his thoughts on Sophie Cunningham and her whole women in sports movement. Let's take a look at the guy's Substack post as well. Let's read it and let's talk about this from a journalism standpoint, because I am siding with the reporter here. I think this is dirty what the Seattle Times did to this guy. So I will show you this. I'm not going to show you. I will read this to you rather. I'll give my 2 cents on it, and then we will move on to the final few nuggets before we wrap up the stream today in, I don't know, probably 10 to 15 minutes or so. By the way, that is a new thing that we will talk about. This stream is going to go for an hour during the football season as well. So we will get into what that means in just a minute. But let's go over to the Seattle Times story first. Okay. All right. So according to Awful Announcing, Matt Calkins opted to resign from the Seattle Times after they allegedly declined to publish his story in support of Sophie Cunningham and her stance on transgender athletes. But it doesn't stop there. This is where it gets weird. And as a fellow journalist, as a fellow reporter, this rubbed me completely the wrong way. So it goes on to say, Calkins announced his exit on social media Thursday, revealing the resignation after 11 years with the Seattle Times was entirely his decision. But after writing several columns that the Seattle Times decided against publishing, Calkins decided to leave. This is the part that bothers me, okay? This bothers me to my core. If you're going to write something and the paper says, or whoever it is, says that they're going to publish it, they have a duty, in my opinion, to follow through with that. And they have to have a legitimate reason as to why they shouldn't be publishing something. Nor should it feel like a columnist is being ignored. And this to me feels like they did this guy dirty. I'm gonna keep reading. This was his tweet. Okay. After 11 years as a sports columnist at the Seattle Times, I've decided to resign. It was entirely my choice, and it was not an easy one. The impetus was the Times declining to run a column I wrote from the perspective of 2 female student athletes. By the way, one of them publicly acknowledged Calkins on Twitter, so you know that this guy wasn't BSing anything. The declining to run a column I wrote from the perspective of 2 female student athletes who were opposed to competing against biological males. It was one of several pieces of mine that had been spiked, and I no longer felt like I could properly do my job as a columnist, which, to be fair, if you've had multiple pieces that you've written that have been declined or ignored or just flat out just sideshowed, I would feel disappointed myself if I was in this guy's position as well. It'd be like, am I not being honored here for doing the job that you're allegedly paying me to do? Anyway, let me continue with that. It was one of several pieces of mine that had been spiked, and I no longer felt like I could properly do my job as a columnist. I lay out the situation in greater detail at the link below, which is a link to a Substack piece, which I will read partially because he made it free. But I want to say that I enjoyed my time with the paper. Find the talent there to be immense and have no animosity toward anyone who works there. It was just time for a change. Yeah, I would wholly understand that. And by the way, to any of my previous, not to make this about myself, but to any of my previous spots, just so it's on the record and it's clear, and I said it, and I don't mean it in a sugarcoating way. None of the other places I've been, I have no animosity towards them. Every single place that I've ever been was a step up to the next phase of my career. So I just want to make it clear that Calkins took the high road, and if it was me, I would have taken the high road as well. And it's clear this guy has no animosity, but I would feel a little bit slighted by whoever decided to do him like this, though, a little bit. So let me read part of this. All right. Here is the Substack. I'm going to show this to you guys here. All right. So this is what he wrote on Substack. It's blown up. It has 1,621 likes and 632 comments and 171 reposts. It says, I really wanted the column to run. I didn't think it would, but I felt obligated to try to get it in. Toward the end of the month, before the Seattle Storm hosted the Indiana Fever, I spoke to people attending a rally in support of Sophie Cunningham outside Climate Pledge Arena. The Fever recently taken a stance against biological males competing in women's and girls' sports, and a few dozen folks showed up to express their gratitude for her position. A lot of people showed up, by the way. There's even tons of video footage of this, and I'm not going to go into this because we'll be on for too long, but there even is a viral video, which I may address in the future, of people who were kicked out of Climate Pledge Arena just for bringing a sign in, which made no sense. All right. One of them was 16-year-old, I don't want to butcher her name, but Annalie Wilson, that's how I would say it. Or Annalie Wilson, who'd lost to a biological male in a track and field race in 8th grade and was holding up a sign reading, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls. I didn't know if I was going to write something at that point, but after she allegedly got cussed out by a Storm co-owner during the game, I felt like I had to weigh in." One thing Wilson expressed to me at the rally was that she wasn't anti-trans. Another student athlete named Frances Stott, who said she'd endured daily verbal abuse after refusing to play against a biological boy in a basketball game, echoed Wilson's sentiment. So anyway, he goes on to say, he begins writing his thesis. He goes, I sent a draft after talking to my editor the morning of Friday, July 31st, telling him there was no rush to run it. He told me later that day that he and the others were looking at it, but that it wouldn't be ready for Sunday's paper, which is understandable. That sometimes happens in this business. Monday night, I got an email saying that his boss was hoping to talk to the top two newsroom editors about it on Wednesday. No feedback had been given to me. See, this is them gatekeeping because all they had to say was they didn't want to run the story. See, I hate superiors who delay things for no reason other than because they want to. I'm going to keep this next thing to myself, but I'm just going to say I can relate to this, not to this scale, but I can relate to this from personal experience. So figured I would just mention that. No feedback had been given to me Thursday afternoon. My editor informed me that it wasn't going to run because I didn't tell him I was doing this in advance. I didn't buy the reasoning. If that were the case, the piece would have been killed on the spot, not passed through the hands of multiple editors over several days. This just makes my blood boil as someone who as someone who works in similar fashion to this guy. I'm not a columnist, but I know how to write columns when I need to. This is the part that just destroys me. My response to resign on the spot. This may come off as an emotional decision, but it was exactly what I was prepared to do. This, after all, was one of several columns of mine that had been spiked at the Seattle Times. One was a piece questioning whether players of the U.S. women's soccer team were really the victims of discrimination in their equal pay lawsuit. Another was a more general column on cancel culture in sports. The last, written shortly after George Floyd's death, implored people to listen to state champion basketball coach Mike Betha, a black man urging the public not to stereotype cops. The common theme, all of these challenge prevailing newsroom narratives and likely would have been triggered by the outrage mob. I've always thought that it was a columnist's duty to generate discussion on the most hot button issues. See, this guy understands SEO because that's exactly what you're supposed to do. To avoid such topics was to leave the reader shortchanged. I guess in the end, I just didn't feel like I could do my job properly anymore. Right now, I'm in the tenuous position of trying to defend my resignation without sounding like uh, um, uh, um, uh, a malcontent. So let me say, I'm very grateful for the 11 years I had at the Seattle Times. The talent there is immense, and the editors let me have a lot of fun with other stories. But I also realize where the press is coming from. The mob is frightening and does not forget. Lots of seemingly brave souls have submitted once activists once or have submitted once activists got their hooks in them. If I had more people depending on me, perhaps I'd act similarly. See, this is interesting. Okay, so, and then he goes on to say the plan for now is to keep running in this space. Maybe that will spawn a new career, or maybe I'll be a dental assistant in 2 years. I genuinely do not know. All that's certain is that I'm done holding back. The best things in life are free, speech being at the top of the list. 1,000,000%. Shout out to this guy for defending himself. This guy is going to be a legend in a lot of people's minds, regardless of if they follow the journalism industry or not. But this guy, in my opinion, made the right decision to resign on the spot. The Seattle Times does not deserve this guy. In fact, they should be thanking him for being someone that isn't afraid to hold back his opinion. And for those of you who listen to shows like this one or other shows, I try to be as forward facing as possible because I know most of the written stuff that I do personally, I can't go as in depth as I'm doing on streams like this. So if you want the real me, subscribe to this channel. If you want the real Matt Calkin, subscribe to his Substack. There's going to be more people like this coming out in the future that are realizing that their open, independent voices or what they say or what they think is much larger than where the audience follows them on a day-to-day basis. So shout out to this guy for speaking the truth. And it's already been stated, but this guy did his due diligence by putting himself out there, taking a risk, and let's see if it pays off. Speaking of taking a risk, or I guess expanding into something new, a couple of years ago, we started Bando's Blitz and was an exclusive social media vehicle for Bando's breakdowns. We will be bringing that back for season 3. Records in all, college football, NFL. It will restart next week with week 0 action. It'll come out on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, right before kickoff of all the madness in college football. There's only a couple week 0 games, so not a whole lot to talk about, but we will introduce Bando's Blitz. For those of you who don't know the format of the video series, it goes up on Instagram and on X, as well as TikTok. I give you 3 NFL games and 3 college football games to pick. Next week will be all college football, so we will take it. And yeah, I'm excited to see how week 0 plays out as well. So we'll go over all those games. We'll have records, the whole bit, every Saturday moving forward, beginning next week, 11 a.m. Eastern on social. So it's back. Bando's Blitz will return. It will be back in your life, so stay tuned for more on that to come as well. Very important. And finally, final topic of today's program, RAF 12. It was their 1-year anniversary show from Rocket Mortgage Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. I was not in attendance, but of course I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it. Let's go over the RAF event itself if we can. Let's see here. Let's see. RAF 12 in the main event. Henry Cejudo defeated Merab Dvalishvili in just 36 seconds via pin. Jordan Burroughs defeated Sean Brady via tech fall 11-0, including Burroughs throwing Brady, which if you haven't seen it yet, it was everywhere. Gable Stevenson remains active, defeating Anthony Cassiope via 6-0. Kennedy Blades gets the job done over Reese Mendy via tech fall. Max McNelly defeated Bob Nickel. That was the big shocker of the night. Let's see. Jason Nolf defeated Evan Wick. Jesse Mendez defeated Vladimir Kinchigavili, if I got that correctly. Shout out to me. I don't know if I did. David Carr defeated Tajmurez. Let's see. Sal Kazanov, 5-4. Johini DeJulius defeated Asu Amabayev. It's pretty crazy. Asu Amabayev is a beast in the UFC. Let's see. Caddick defeated Will Levon. And then Tyron Woodley defeated Joaquin Buckley, pair of, well, Woodley's a former UFC veteran. Buckley is a UFC veteran. And then Ben Davino lost to Manzuki Ono via points 4-0. So a solid event. Lot to be excited about if you are RAF at this point. It's their 1-year anniversary. They've signed a lot of big names. I was just at their event in Milwaukee. There's going to be more announcements to come. They have a pretty big event in Moscow coming up as well. They have another event in Vegas coming up in October. Could be some good news around the corner in November as well. Not ready to talk about it just yet, but overall, a solid event. It was on Fox Nation. The replay's up right now. If you want to go back and look at it, it was during a crowded night in combat sports. There was also PFL Tampa, which we didn't get to today. There was a brand risk event yesterday, which FaZe Temper was on that, which was a crazy scene. Bob Menery lost again, but what else is new? But yeah, it was a wild night in combat sports. But nonetheless, though, that's going to do it in just the final few minutes here for Zinger Part 2. Thank you so much. And by the way, I want to make a quick announcement. I said it earlier in the stream. These shows will be an hour long moving forward because Will Charlton, you may remember from Noteworthy in the NCAA and Forever Power 5, will be joining me for his Noteworthy in the NCAA segment in a combined format with Zinger Part 2 every Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. The only time we're going to miss this thing is the weekend of September 12th, where I will get my wisdom teeth out. So he will take over the stream that weekend. But nonetheless, though, it should be a great time. Will Charlton's a great dude. Just got a brand new job in Nebraska as a sports director at one of the local Nebraska TV stations. He's been a workhorse for several years now in the TV business. Someone who I know very well from my days at the University of Illinois, and just a great guy overall to know, and just a good dude overall, a good guy for the network, and someone who all of us really like and respect a lot. He's been a personal friend to me for several years and has just been a really good guy to know, a guy who knows ball really well too. So that also helps. So excited to go through all that as well. Let's go through a few quick reminders. Shout out to the 250 people who stayed in here for an hour today. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow the show on social media at Bandos Breakdown. You can subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/ETV Network. For those who don't know me, I am Zan Bando. I'm a sports journalist and an ETV Network co-host. You can find my work tons of different places, including Field Level Media, where I did give you an instant recap of UFC Sacramento last night. Ohio State Buckeyes on Sports Illustrated. We've been publishing every single day this whole week, including today. We had a new story go up this morning. If you want to check it out on the Ohio State Transfer Portal progress, so if you want to go and take a look at that, you can. And then, of course, at the Sporting News as well. We have an avalanche of TSN content coming today and tomorrow, all about college football. So stay tuned for all that and so much more. I wanted to go through one final reminder as well. I'd be remiss if I did not talk about this as well. We have updates for Bandos Breakdowns episode 104 as well as episode 105. So episode 104 will remain in its standard time slot this Thursday at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. Even though the following week, the network will be transitioning to a back to football week, my show will still be on the air. So we will go live on Friday, September 4th at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. The day after Illinois versus UAB, you'll get a full recap of that game and a full preview of the week 1 slate. It didn't make sense to miss week 1, so we made some adjustments. So episode 105, September 4th, and then obviously episode 104 this upcoming Thursday in the lead up to week 0 in college football, UFC Shanghai, and so much more. With that, that'll do it. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for tuning in once again to another edition of Zain Zinger Part 2. Stay tuned later tonight for the ETB Lounge as well. It should be a good time. I'm pretty sure Callan McCorrick is also off this week, so it'll be an interesting panel of guests, but stay tuned for that and so much more later on tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. My name is Zain Bando. Shout out to the 255 people who pulled in this morning, afternoon, or wherever you may be in the world. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. We will see you guys back for another edition of Bando's Breakdowns this upcoming Thursday for episode 104. Until then, my name is Zain Bando. Have a great Sunday. Keep it rolling. Keep it locked in. Get out. Get some nice weather. There's only going to be a few more warm weeks of the summer and eventual beginning of the fall left. So enjoy the warm weather while we still have it. See you guys soon. Check you guys out later. Talk to you later. And cheers, everyone. Thanks. Have a good one.